3 seconds that changed everything. 3 seconds. That's all it took for a dream season to begin unraveling. 3 seconds transformed De'Aaron Fox from the player Spurs fans believed could help deliver the franchise's next championship into the center of one of the most heated debates in recent NBA history. And the most shocking part, just moments earlier, San Antonio looked unstoppable. The arena was electric. Fans were already imagining the celebration. Commentators were talking about momentum, legacy, and the bright future of a team built around Victor Wembanyama and De'Aaron Fox. The Spurs had done almost everything right. They had controlled the game, dictated the pace, and pushed the New York Knicks to the brink. Then came the collapse. Not a slow collapse. Not a collapse spread across an entire series. A collapse that NBA fans would replay over and over again. As the final moments approached, the pressure became unbearable. Every possession felt heavier. Every decision carried championship-level consequences. Millions of viewers watched from around the world, unaware that one sequence was about to redefine the conversation surrounding Fox's career. For years, Fox had built a reputation as one of the league's most explosive guards. He was fearless attacking the basket. He thrived in big moments. He had earned respect through speed, toughness, and confidence. But basketball can be cruel. Sometimes an entire season is judged not by hundreds of great plays, but by one controversial moment. The Spurs entered the finals believing they were ready to announce the beginning of a new dynasty. Wembanyama was becoming a global superstar. Fox was expected to be the veteran star who could guide the young core through the pressure of championship basketball. Instead, what happened next would leave fans stunned. The questions started immediately. Did Fox make the wrong decision? Did the coaching staff put him in a difficult position? Was the collapse bigger than one player? Or was this the moment that truly cost San Antonio a championship? Those questions would ignite social media, divide NBA analysts, and create an emotional storm that nobody inside the Spurs organization could escape. But before the criticism, before the headlines, before the endless debates, there was a game that looked completely under control, and that's where this story really begins. If you're watching right now, tell us where you're watching from in the comment. And here's a question for every NBA fan. If you believe Fox deserves most of the blame, comment 1. If you believe the entire Spurs team shares responsibility, comment 2. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next chapter reveals how a nearly perfect night suddenly turned into the beginning of a nightmare. The lead that felt too big to lose. San Antonio did not look like a team in trouble. For most of Game 4, the Spurs looked like a team ready to punch back, ready to tie the finals, ready to remind New York that this series was far from over. The ball moved, the crowd roared, Wembanyama controlled the paint, Fox pushed the pace. Every Knicks mistake felt like another sign that the night belonged to San Antonio. At one point, the Spurs had built a lead so large it felt impossible to waste. Nearly 30 points separated them from disaster. Fans were standing, the bench was alive. Even the energy inside the arena felt like a celebration waiting for permission to begin. But this is the NBA final. No lead is safe when pressure enters the room. New York did not panic. They kept defending, they kept cutting into the margin. One basket became two stops became a run. The Spurs, once calm and confident, started rushing small decisions. A bad pass here, a forced shot there, a missed defensive assignment that looked harmless in the moment, but deadly in the bigger picture. The Knicks slowly turned the game from a blowout into a fight. And with every possession, San Antonio's confidence began to crack. Fox was still the man the Spurs trusted. He was the veteran guard, the closer, the player brought in to guide a young team through chaos. But the chaos was growing, and the game was no longer about talent. It was about control. That was the first warning sign, because when the Spurs needed calm, the night started speeding up. When confidence turned into fear, the most dangerous moment in basketball is not always when a team is losing. Sometimes it is when a team is winning, but starts playing like it is afraid to lose. That is what happened to San Antonio. The Spurs stopped attacking with freedom. Their possessions became tight, their passes came half a second late, their shots looked less like rhythm and more like survival. New York felt it. The Knicks began pressing harder, forcing the ball out of comfortable spots, making Fox work for every inch. OG Anunoby became a shadow on defense. Jalen Brunson kept applying pressure. The entire Knicks team smelled weakness. And the crowd knew it too. The cheers started changing. At first, every Spurs basket brought noise. Then, every Knicks basket brought silence. Then came the nervous energy. The kind that spreads through an arena when fans know something is going wrong before the scoreboard fully admits it. Fox had built his career on speed, but this moment needed patience. The Spurs did not need a miracle. They needed one smart possession, one calm decision, one veteran play. That is why the final seconds would become so painful, because San Antonio had already survived the worst of the comeback. They still had the lead. They still had the ball. They still had the chance to escape. And then Fox saw daylight. In his mind, it was the same daylight he had attacked his entire career. But in the finals, against a defender like OG Anunoby, with everything shaking around him, daylight can be a trap. The decision everyone replayed. The clock was dying. The Spurs were up by 1. Fox had the ball, and for 1 second, the entire season seemed to rest in his hands. The simple play was there. Hold the ball, make New York foul, walk to the free throw line, force the Knicks to chase the game while the clock worked against them. But Fox did not choose simple. He chose instinct. He saw open floor. He saw the rim. He saw a chance to put San Antonio up 3 and force New York into desperation. For most of his life, that choice would have made sense. Fox had outrun defenders since he entered the league. His first step was his weapon. His speed was his identity. So he drove, the arena leaned forward. For one brief moment, it looked like Fox was about to silence every doubt. One layup, and the Spurs would have control. One finish, and the collapse would become a scare, not a disaster. But OG Anunoby did not quit on the play. He recovered. He chased. He timed it perfectly. And when Fox lifted the ball toward the glass, OG met him at the rim. The block was clean. The sound of it felt louder than the crowd. In that instant, the story changed. Fox was not the hero anymore. He was the man whose decision opened the door. The block, the tip, the silence. A blocked shot is usually one play. This one felt like a verdict. When OG Anunoby rejected Fox at the rim, the ball did not just change possession. The entire emotional weight of the finals changed with it. New York was alive. San Antonio was scrambling. The Spurs still had a 1-point lead, but the game no longer felt like theirs. The Knicks ran the other way with belief in their legs. The Spurs chased them with panic in their eyes. Jalen Brunson got a look. He missed. For half a second, Spurs fans thought they had survived. But survival in the finals requires finishing the possession. OG Anunoby was there again. The same player who had blocked Fox on one end now appeared under the basket on the other. He rose, tipped the ball in, and gave New York the lead with almost no time left. The arena froze. Spurs fans stared at the floor. Fox stood inside the wreckage of a game that had slipped away in second. A 2-9-point lead was gone. A chance to tie the finals was gone. And the player San Antonio trusted to close the game had become the face of the collapse. That is what made the moment so cruel. It was not just that Fox missed, it was that every safe option had been available. And he still chose the one path that ended in disaster. The storm after the horn. The final buzzer did not end the pain for San Antonio. It started the storm. Inside the arena, the Knicks were celebrating like a team that had been handed new life. Their bench exploded. Their players rushed toward OG Anunoby. The man who had just blocked De'Aaron Fox on one end and finished the game on the other became the face of New York's survival. But on the Spurs side, nobody moved the same way. Some players walked straight toward the tunnel. Some stared at the scoreboard. Some looked down at the floor like they were trying to understand how a game they had controlled for so long had vanished in less than a minute. And then the cameras found Fox. That was the image people remember. Not the early Spurs run, not the 2 9-point lead, not the full list of mistakes that came before the final seconds. Just Fox. Standing there with the weight of the collapse sitting on his shoulders, he did not run from the media. He did not disappear into the locker room and let someone else answer for him. He sat down and faced the questions. But sometimes facing the questions does not save you from the reaction. The reporters wanted to know why. Why attack the rim? Why not hold the ball? Why not force New York to foul? Fox explained that he thought he could beat OG to the basket. He thought he could get the layup, put San Antonio up 3, and force the Knicks into a desperate 3-point attempt. From a basketball point of view, the idea was not impossible to understand, but from a fan's point of view, after watching a finals game slip away, it sounded like a mistake too big to forgive. Then the internet took over. Within minutes, the clip was everywhere. Every angle of the block, every replay of the tip-in, every slow motion shot of Fox going up and OG meeting him at the rim. The conversation did not stay calm. It became emotional, it became angry, it became personal. And once people connected that mistake to Fox's massive contract, the story became even bigger. Now, he was not just the guard who made the wrong read. He was the $229 million closer who failed to close. That number turned frustration into outrage. Fans began asking whether San Antonio had made a mistake by betting so heavily on him. Analysts questioned his decision-making. Social media turned one play into a full judgment of his value. The cruel part was that Game 4 was not even the end of the series. Fox still had to come back. He still had to play again. And now he had to do it while carrying the loudest criticism of his career. The night Fox had to answer. Game 5 was supposed to be the response. Every great player gets tested. Every star has a night where the world doubts him. But the difference between a painful mistake and a permanent label often comes down to what happens next. For De'Aaron Fox, Game 5 was that moment. He had one chance to change the conversation, one chance to remind Spurs fans why the front office wanted him, one chance to show that Game 4 was a mistake, not a warning sign. The building was heavy before the opening tip. This was not a normal finals atmosphere anymore. The crowd was nervous. The players knew what was at stake. The cameras knew where to look. They kept finding Fox. Every warm-up shot felt like a question. Every close-up of his face felt like a preview of judgment. The Spurs needed him to be aggressive but controlled, fast but smart, confident but not reckless. That is a difficult balance for any player, especially one carrying the memory of the previous game. At first, San Antonio tried to settle in. Wembanyama fought for position. The young players tried to bring energy. The defense had moments where it looked strong enough to extend the series, but Fox never truly looked comfortable. His shots were short. His drives did not have the same sharpness. When he attacked, New York's defense was waiting. When he pulled up, the rhythm was not there. The Knicks understood exactly where the pressure was. They made every possession difficult. They forced him toward jumpers. They turned his speed into a question instead of a weapon, and the longer the game went, the heavier every miss became. By the fourth quarter, the Spurs needed a star. They needed the closer. They needed the player who was supposed to turn chaos into points. Instead, Fox disappeared from the game's most important stretch. 0 points, 0 assists, 0 rebounds, 4 shots, 4 misses. That kind of line does not need dramatic music. It is already brutal by itself. In an elimination game, with the season on the line, the player San Antonio trusted most in late-game moments produced nothing in the quarter that mattered most, and the final score made it hurt even more. The Spurs did not lose by 20. They did not get destroyed. They lost a winnable game. That is what made every miss feel bigger. That is what made every empty possession feel like evidence. A few made shots could have changed the ending. One strong fourth quarter from Fox could have pushed the series forward. Instead, the Knicks closed the door. When the horn sounded, San Antonio's season was over. Fox walked off the floor knowing that he had not answered the criticism. He had confirmed it for the people already waiting to attack. Game 4 gave the internet the image. Game 5 gave it the numbers. Together, they created a story Fox could not escape. When one player became the headline, the New York Knicks had just reached the top of the basketball world. They had won the finals. Their players had earned the celebration. Their city had waited for that kind of moment for generations. But somehow, the conversation kept drifting away from the champion. It kept returning to De'Aaron Fox. That is how strange sports can be. Sometimes the winner gets the trophy, but the loser becomes the headline. And in this case, Fox became more than a headline. He became the symbol of San Antonio's collapse. The block became the picture. The scoreless fourth quarter became the proof. The contract became the fuel. Every part of the story worked against him. Fans who were angry did not want a complicated explanation. They did not want to hear about team mistakes, injuries, bad spacing, missed rotations, or the pressure of the moment. They wanted one clear answer, and Fox was the easiest answer. He had the ball at the end of Game 4. He had the massive contract. He was the veteran closer. He was supposed to be the calm hand next to Wembanyama. So when the Spurs lost, the blame traveled straight to him. National shows picked up the story. Commentators debated whether the Spurs could trust him again. Fans online began demanding trades. Some people argued that San Antonio should immediately turn the offense over to the young core and stop building around a veteran who had just failed on the biggest stage. Then the jokes arrived, and jokes can be more damaging than an album. A serious breakdown might fade after a day. A meme can live forever. Fox was turned into a punchline by people who did not even watch the entire series. Some only knew the final play, some only knew the box score, some only knew the contract number. But that was enough for them to join the pile-up. That is when the story became unfair. Not because Fox played well. He did not. Not because he deserved no criticism. He did. But because the entire finals became reduced to one man, as if basketball is not a team sport. The Spurs had blown leads before that final possession. Other players had missed shots. Other defensive mistakes had opened the door. The coaching staff had decisions to answer for too, but those details were not as easy to share. They were not as viral. They did not fit into a short clip. So Fox carried the story. He became the face of a collapse that was bigger than him. That is the danger of NBA drama. It creates emotion. It keeps fans watching. It gives people something to argue about. But it can also flatten the truth until a complicated failure becomes one player's identity. And now Fox had to live with that identity. Not just for a night, not just for a week, possibly for the rest of his time in San Antonio. The truth. The noise tried to bury. The loudest version of the story was simple. De'Aaron Fox failed. The Spurs lost. Therefore, Fox cost San Antonio the final. That version was easy to understand. easy to repeat, and easy to turn into clips. But easy does not always mean accurate. The truth was deeper. The first thing many people ignored was the injury. Fox was not playing with a fully healthy body. A high ankle sprain is not a small problem for a guard whose game depends on speed. For some players, an ankle injury affects movement. For Fox, it attacks the foundation of his entire identity. His first step is his advantage. His burst is what separates him. His ability to beat defenders to the rim is what made him special. So when people asked why he could not get past OG Anunoby, they also had to ask whether Fox was physically capable of being the version of himself he trusted in that moment. That does not erase the mistake, but it explains why the mistake may have happened. A healthy Fox might have finished that layup. A fully explosive Fox might have reached the rim before OG recovered. A player without that ankle issue might have turned the same decision into the biggest play of the series. Instead, the body did not answer the way his instincts expected it to. That is not an excuse. It is context. The second truth is that the Spurs collapsed as a team. No single player loses a 2-9 point lead alone. That kind of collapse requires many small failures stacking on top of each other. Bad possessions, missed rotations, weak rebounding, rushed decision, poor late game organization. The final Fox play was the loudest mistake, but it was not the only one. The game had been slipping for a long time before that block ever happened. The third truth is about Wembanyama. He is the future. He is the franchise. He is the reason San Antonio believes another championship era is possible. But even he had imperfect moments in the series. He missed chances. He had quiet stretches. He also felt the pressure of the finals. The difference is perception. When a young superstar struggles, fans call it growth. When an expensive veteran struggles, fans call it failure. That is why Fox received a different kind of criticism. His contract changed the way people judged him. His role changed the way people judged him. He was not viewed as a player learning how to win. He was viewed as the player brought in to teach everyone else how to win. And that is what made his collapse feel so damaging. Still, the Spurs have to be careful. If they make Fox the only problem, they will miss the bigger lessons. They need better late game structure. They need healthier stars. They need clearer roles. They need to protect young players from being forced into chaos and veterans from being asked to solve everything alone. Fox deserves accountability, but accountability is not the same as scapegoating. The full truth is this: Fox failed in the brightest moment, but the Spurs put themselves in a position where one failed moment could destroy everything. That is a team problem. And if San Antonio wants to return to the finals, that is the lesson they cannot afford to ignore. The lesson San Antonio cannot ignore. So what is the real verdict on De'Aaron Fox? The honest answer is not simple. Fox deserves criticism. There is no way around that. When the Spurs needed calm, he attacked too quickly. When they needed a closer in Game 5, he gave them an empty fourth quarter. When a franchise invests that much money, trust, and expectation into one veteran guard, the standard becomes higher. That is the reality of NBA stardom. But criticism should not become destruction, because the Spurs did not lose the finals on one play. They did not lose only because Fox got blocked. They did not lose only because he went cold in the fourth quarter. They lost because a young team failed to manage pressure, because a huge lead disappeared, because defensive possessions were not finished, because the offense tightened, and because the entire roster learned how unforgiving the finals can be. Fox became the face of the loss because he was the easiest symbol. He had the ball. He had the contract. He had the veteran label. He had the responsibility of being the closer, but being the face of a collapse does not mean being the only cause of it. Strategically, San Antonio has to be very careful now. If the front office reacts emotionally, they could damage the future they have worked so hard to build. Trading Fox just to satisfy angry fans might feel good for a week, but it could create a bigger basketball problem later. At the same time, pretending nothing happened would be just as dangerous. The Spurs need to ask the hard questions. Can Fox still be trusted as a late game decision maker? Can he regain the speed and confidence that made him special? Can Wembanyama and Fox develop better chemistry when the game slows down? Can the coaching staff build a closing offense that gives the team more than one option? That last question may be the most important. Championship teams do not survive by asking one player to save them every night. They survive because they have structure, they have spacing, they have counters. They know what to do when the first plan breaks. That is the real lesson for the Spurs. Do not build a future where one bad decision can erase everything. For Fox, the lesson is personal. His speed made him dangerous, but wisdom has to become his next weapon. The next time he has the ball in a moment like that, the winning play may not be the fast play. It may be the patient play, the safe play, the play that does not make the highlight reel, but saves the season. For Wembanyama, the lesson is leadership. Greatness is not only about talent, it is about lifting the room after heartbreak. It is about understanding that every championship path includes pain. This loss can either divide the Spurs or mature them. For the fans, the lesson is human. It is fair to be angry. It is fair to expect more. It is fair to criticize a star who comes up short. But no athlete should be reduced to one mistake. No player should have his entire value erased because of one brutal week. Fox failed, but failure can become fuel. San Antonio fell apart, but collapse can become education. The Spurs are not finished unless they choose to let this moment define them. They still have Wembanyama, they still have young talent, they still have a path forward. And Fox, if he stays, still has a chance to turn the loudest criticism of his career into the beginning of his redemption. That is what makes sports powerful. The same moment that breaks a player can also build him if he is honest enough to learn from it. So the question now is not just whether De'Aaron Fox failed. The question is what he does after failing. Does he hide from the moment, or does he return stronger? Does San Antonio panic, or does it grow wiser? Does the fan base keep looking for one person to blame, or does it understand that championships are won and lost by entire organization? Because the next chapter of the Spurs will not be written by the block. It will be written by the response. If you believe De'Aaron Fox can still redeem himself in San Antonio, comment 1. If you believe the Spurs should move on and fully build around Wembanyama and the young core, comment 2. Like this video, share it with another NBA fan, and subscribe to the channel for more NBA news, drama, trades, locker room stories, and deep breakdowns from around the league.